46, the game starts to become a tit-for-tat type situation. You know, the Ottomans, oh look, we can get a couple of 2-to-1s, let's go do those. Making the assumption that 2-to-1 is good. I didn't really look at the chart, let's make sure. Not terribly. We'd like to get to 3-to-1. So you know what? Throw these here. Was I able to even get here? I had to attack these. 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I was able to get there. So I think what I want to do is, yeah, this looks stronger, but the every other hex going to end up here. I'm also dumping off some of my Janissaries here. They're going to walk from now on. Now, I probably don't want to give up Belgrade or Bucharest. I can't defend Bucharest, so I'll run down and throw some troops into Belgrade just to force that to be a siege if need be. So now I'm up to 3-to-1, which is a little bit more reasonable. And of course I had to pay all my bucks, whatever I make, 17 or whatever. I don't gain anything for owning Hungary. I get a 5, that's going to be the exchange. 2 for 2. It's a hard call. I think I'll take these guys as losses. The Habsburgs. Oh, and we each have to pay $2 for being engaged. I'm sorry, I have to pay $6 and the Habsburgs have to pay 2. Unlike the big piles situation, where the papacy just wants to hide from the Lutherans, that I thought the game was going to devolve into. Right now there's no reason the papacy can't attack the Lutherans. And in fact, maybe I'd want to hit the places that are most interesting to me, but actually I just want to hit their piles. And I've got the hope that I've got a stack of 3 that's better than any of their random stacks of 3. And that's about all I can do. So, these guys should not be Lutheran anymore. There's Catholics sitting in there. Not that it matters much. Oh, we'll move here and fix Bologna too, just as a matter of course. And we'll test out our stack. There's nothing we really want to do with our armies right now. Even though the papacy is a little more free to use its armies offensively than anyone else, I'm not at war with anyone. And I kind of don't want to be. Like, if I expend for the declaration of war, which I guess doesn't cost me very much, then the Lutherans don't have to expend and they can tink away at us. Although it would seem to me that Catholic and Lutherans should just be at war. Okay. So let's see what we find here in what, Zurich? Okay. So the Lutherans have one good guy. They have a total of 7, which is going to be tough to beat early on. And they're being attacked by a 4. Okay. But on the bright side, I get to get rid of some of my crappy units. Okay, so 4 to 7 is 1 to 2. And I'll throw some dice around. 1. CP1, the challenger is imprisoned for 1 to 2 years. Okay, in this case it's 1 year. I'm going to find them. That's all of these guys. I'll be imprisoned until next year's reinforcement phase. And a pretty good stack of Lutherans has been exposed, which means on their turn, they're going to probably, well, this is a hard call. Do they want to use those to try to wipe out crappy papal Jesuits, or would they rather spread them out and use them for defense because they already have most everything that they want converted? And even things that you wouldn't expect them to convert, like Bohemia, have already swung over. Hard call. Habsburg suffered a major setback over here. They could only get 2-1 on any of these pieces except on a siege attack. Decided to go for that 2-1. Well, 2-1's a dangerous table and not particularly in the advantage of the attacker. I have a lot of navies coming over, which gives me a great deal of strength, but we were badly defeated in Hungary, or near Hungary. In and near. Hey, this is Hungary too, right? And now the Ottomans definitely have the edge over there. The only real problem is they're facing a very large Habsburg fleet, which could take Constantinople if I'm not careful. Now, we can build some of these units, but not all of our losses. The Habsburgs have some significant losses there. Now what? France has to be thinking about going to war. If they're going to war, they ought to move their units now and put the threat on the Habsburgs. Someone undecided and they don't want to telegraph their move. They can pretty much reach where they need to reach, I hope. The only thing that I don't get is I don't get the Swiss mercenaries yet that I've paid for, but that's okay. If we telegraph our move, well, maybe that means England doesn't do anything but declares war on us. And they have the advantage over in Scotland. That's something we would rather not see happen right away. Okay, the Lutherans chose not to attack the papacy. They're probably going, they have their intentions to make an alliance with the Habsburgs, of all people, to try to prevent Vienna from falling. Okay, so France has declared war on the Habsburgs, but England has also declared war on France. Basically, the clock is ticking. We feel like we have to do something, and so we threw ourselves in. We figure we can take Edinburgh, and our naval power is enough in Europe that we might be able to operate against the French. Here's the problem. France and England should have been, at this point probably, trying to defeat the Lutherans. The Lutherans are the problem here. They really are. They're going to run away with the game. And a lot of people have stated, well, they're sort of the default winner. I think as people get more experience with the game, the Lutherans become perceived as more of a threat than, say, the Habsburgs. I mean, the Habsburgs have all this territory, and historically there was a lot of anti-Habsburg activity going on. Certainly France, the Ottomans, were very much anti-Habsburg. England was not at first, but became much less pro-Habsburg, and in fact, supports the Lutherans anytime the Habsburgs take an advantage, no matter what, kind of baked into the game. But the problem is the Lutherans, kind of are set up so that they don't look like they're really threatening anyone. They're just threatening the papacy. No one else cares about what territories they take. And especially if you don't know the victory conditions, which the game kind of hints you shouldn't, they're going to run away with it. If you know what the victory conditions are, even in general, like not knowing the specifics of any given victory conditions, you can probably, and you're familiar enough with the game, you can probably guess, wow, the Lutherans have racked up a lot of points. Nobody else has any, basically. The Ottomans have Hungary, whatever that's worth, but the Lutherans have tons of points baked into them, and we have to reverse some of that. The problem is, unlike, what's going on in the military side of things, beating up on the Lutherans probably, in order to make them lose victory points, probably means the papacy is going to have to win a lot of theological attacks. And for that to work out, it means that there's a danger of them winning the game in the same sort of fashion. They have a lot less power to bring to bear and a lot less stacking the points up before, everybody starts actually acting. But yeah, I understand people who look at it and say, well, the Lutherans always win. Yeah, if you're walking into this, with people who aren't really, who don't understand what the victory points are, and the game kind of asks you not to understand what they are, I think the Lutherans are going to win almost every game just due to we're not really hurting anyone, and nobody who's powerful enough to affect us really cares about what we have. Probably the Habsburgs have a few that they care about. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not. Belgrade, Brandenburg's worth something. Hesse, Saxony, and Württemberg, but that's just one direction the Habsburgs go in, and it's a direction that probably isn't threatening them, whereas the Ottomans almost invariably are going to go after the Habsburgs. The French and the Habsburgs have a conflict of interest over here in Italy, as does the papacy, and you can see their cheap aggressive actions allowed them to grab all that territory. Should that have happened? I don't know. Maybe a clash in Italy would have been more sensible. But the chance of not being able to hold things that you take early in the game made it seem like a bad deal. Anyway, looks like we're heading for that Lutheran victory, but the sort of default victory that they're going to get because they don't look like much of a threat. But maybe people will come to their senses. The only real problem is the Ottomans really do need to attack the Habsburgs. They have nothing they're interested in. Augsburg, Nuremberg. I mean, if they hurt the Habsburgs badly enough and maybe wipe them out of the Austrian territory, then moving against the Lutherans makes sense. But without an Austrian alliance, which of course the papacy might not like, although, maybe the papacy's in favor of it because it's probably directed against the Lutherans. We're going to use my little mutated naval system for this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This guy can get there on his own. These guys can get there on their own. So that gets me 3-2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And 7 from here if I do it. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to move this one. It cost me an extra $1. I've already paid the full price. And now I think on a 1 through 4, because I'm only trying to add 6 movement points, I get to move extra. And I get that. Can't move next to this or else we'll have too many things adjacent to us. We'll drop these guys off. So that's 3-2. No reason for this guy to charge up there. Send these guys by land. He'll just sail here and discharge his unit up there. And we're launching attacks on Hungary and down here. So we've got a 3-1 here and a 2-1 here. And we're spending $10. The money just starts dissolving, and that's why you had to wait so long to actually start the game. You have to collect up enough that you can fund it, and for them it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And we'll see what the results are going to be. So down here it's 3-1. let's use this chart since it's guaranteed to have results on it, right? I mean, they do anyway. Okay, 1 defender eliminated. That's a good value. Ooh. These guys should be available to be rebuilt this turn. Whole bunch of dead units. And then over here it's only 2 to 1. We just use the combat strength. It's not, 2 to 1's not a good table. But this is our one way, and we get a bonus defender eliminated. That takes the fleets down, the armies down with us. So that's pretty cool. We caused more damage than we would normally. So far I've been pushing away the advance after combat because I wouldn't want to do it normally, but it does indeed exist. You're allowed to advance 1 hex. I'm going to push these guys here because they're going to be hard to get too many units against it, and these guys would have to withdraw and move around if they're not going to stay in and fight. And over here I also want to advance because I want to push that line forward. Now I have landed troops in Tyrol, and I've actually conquered the Tyrol as well. I guess I could use Algerians or something there, but you know, as you can see, the Ottomans are doing a pretty good job. If they're able to knock all this area out, notably Vienna, they'll be in a position where it's going to be very hard for the Habsburgs to take stuff back. Now, I think the Habsburgs have 2 capitals. They have one down in Madrid, which means they'll still be able to build troops, even if I take Vienna. But, you know, it'll be very hard for them to launch successful attacks to regain the Austrian possessions. So indeed, if you capture somebody's capital, they're not building any reinforcements. Now, the Habsburgs happen to have 2 capitals, which is awesome for them. And the Lutherans don't have a capital. Each territory has its own forces, which is another special case. We've just done the papacy. They tested out the Lutherans, charged into 2 spaces. 3 of their Jesuits were burned at the stake. They're out of the game over in the tray right now. They don't go back in the cup as far as I can tell. The other 3 got booted back here, and their numbers were not good. 2 2s and a 1. And that's kind of the thing is, you know, what kind of values do you have? The Lutherans got kind of lucky. The first ones revealed were kind of strong. Well, no, it's not so big. They're showing a 7 here and only a 5 up there on 3 counters. So they're definitely showing some weakness. However, they can come charging down and challenge smaller forces of papists down here. Okay, so for the Habsburg side, did a full move obviously, launching an attack here, and the land units attacking the naval units, this, all kind of stuff like that. Over here I don't have to attack because I'm in a city. Over here we swept down, we're going to try to siege whatever Dijon here. I don't know how valuable it is. And we're moving forces towards the French border. We know England and France are at war. We're at war with France, and what France is doing. Let's see what we've got. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I think 6 more. We've got to spend 12 bucks this turn. In addition, there's the first 6. Oh, I can't have these guys here. They had speedy movement though, so they could be here. They paid and made their roll, which means it's going to cost $2 for the Turks, and we have a 3 to 1 attack on a Turkish navy over here. And by the way, this is often the case, and even happened with the damn 45, although I grew disgusted with the eventual thing. Once I kind of get the flow, and in this case, once the game starts moving, it's okay. Which leads me to believe the basic game would be perfectly fun. The problem is the advanced game, and the advanced game turns into something no more believable than the basic game because you're just hoarding your money until the end. 2, we get a defender retreats 1. Okay, these guys cannot retreat because this is over, they would overstack to move into here, so they're destroyed. And I could advance. Why not? Might as well. That's going to force them to do something. No attack over here. I spend the other $6 on a siege here. The French have to spend 2 to defend themselves. Yeah, we're playing with chips. That's no cash in the game, and it's easy enough. So now I have 3-1, but on the siege combat table, which is not as good. We get a 3. D2H. Honors of war possible. It's going to be a defender retreat 2. We don't have a really good place to go, but we can retreat through their zones of control. So we'll retreat back here. They'll push in, and Dijon's just been captured. How much is Dijon worth? It's worth $2. That's going to be, and yeah, it should be happening now, even normally. That's going to be $2 off of France's earnings, and $2 in favor of the Habsburg earnings. Which means I'll make a couple extra bucks if I'm able to keep that and don't lose anything else. And that looks like that for them. On to the French. And again, you know, I mean, I'm just moving units around and attacking it. It's kind of like a fantasy, you know, there's some simple fantasy war games that are kind of like this without a lot of interesting terrain necessarily, with units just all counting the same or whatever. It's not bad though, you know, it just, I don't know how much of the flavor it really gives you any more than, say, a game of diplomacy does. When you get to the combat and when you actually get to moving units around and doing things with them. It's certainly not EU. It's certainly not the same flavor as Here I Stand. It's a much, much more generic feeling design, except for the victory points and a few things like the religious conversion and stuff. And then, of course, there's like, you know, this incredibly specific rule that's almost ironclad scripted. Not quite, but almost, having to do with the English. Is there any reason the English really want to stay Catholic? I don't know. I can't think of one when you're walking into the game, you know? We're beaten back here with a result we hadn't seen before. Attacker 1/2 eliminated. Half the force eliminated, the rest retreats. I have a 2 hexes, yes. The English, I probably made an error attacking with the English first. I've just spent partial movement and moved them toward the Scottish border. But with the Habsburgs tying down the main French force, I can go take care of Scotland, then shift down and try to deal with France herself. Of course, if the Habsburgs and the English split France, neither one owns it. Even if they're allied, neither one owns it. They're going to have to work out a way to hand it off as a whole, or else it still remains French, for whatever that matters. The cities wouldn't be French. Over to the Lutherans. Lutherans are allied with the Habsburgs, and our goal is going to be to try to help defend Bohemia and Prague, where we'll be allowed to move troops into. Into the 1548 turn. Ottomans declare war on the Lutherans. Habsburgs may be willing to come to some sort of peace with the Ottomans in order to try to bring the Lutherans down. They certainly are interested in coming to some sort of peace with the French in order to bring the Lutherans down. But none of this has occurred yet. This is basically just sounding out. There's not a lot of turns left though. And that's kind of the problem is, how do we bring the Lutherans down fast enough and then reorganize after that? Because right now, the thing that's driven this war is the fact that the Ottomans pretty much need to go to war with the Austrians. If they can come to some sort of agreement, say transition of Hungary or something like that, which I'm sure the Habsburgs don't like the idea of. Failure to control Hungary is 4. But we're not absolutely certain that we can keep Hungary in our hands. If we end up allying with the Ottomans and letting the Ottomans be one of the forces attacking the Lutherans, maybe the Lutherans will have to leave Vienna, and then in order to defend their own territory, and then might be in a position where we can turn and backstab them essentially, and try to gain points in that direction by giving points to the Ottomans in Hungary and moving forward. Can we do it yet? Can we do it this turn? I don't know. Let me think about it. We certainly don't have the French lined up this turn, because the French feel like they have an advantage. I mean, we'd have to buy them off with like Franche-Comté. Yep, we're gonna get a peace with the Ottomans and allow them to keep Hungary as a permanent addition. The reason this kind of works, if I can dig through all these different tables, the reason this kind of works is that, okay, we get 6 points for Hungary, we like that. But also there's Augsburg, there's not Prague, but and not Vienna, obviously. Yeah, there's not a whole hell of a lot else. Oops. Yeah, I don't know if Augsburg's enough, but the threat, we have the Tyrol too. Is that worth shit to us? We don't care about the Tyrol. So we may transfer the Tyrol back to the Austrians as part of this deal, because I'm sure they don't want to lose Tyrol. They don't care about it either. Strangely enough. Okay, so yeah, we'll give that to the Ottomans, and it gives them a way to play in this area. The reason the Ottomans are willing to accept this, we don't have the numerical superiority here. We're outnumbered down here. As a matter of fact, we're going to demand Tyrol back. Because we need access to the Italian territories, perhaps. But the big issue is, after we gain those things, we can look for something else that works. Buda, no, that's Habsburg. Yeah, I mean, it's so hard for me to track all these. Sardinia, Sicily, those we aren't going to get. Potentially we could take Venice, though, with a declaration of war on the papacy. Yeah, we need Tyrol. That's part of the agreement. It doesn't do anything for the Ottomans, or for the Habsburgs, and the Ottomans need it in order to transition to attack the papacy if they want to, because they've got so little they can gain there. And let's make sure the Habsburgs are not horribly hating this. They've got things they can gain, Saxony, Württemberg, etc. So as of right now, we'll also sign an Ottoman-Habsburg alliance. We kind of can't. Where's Augsburg? Augsburg's over here. Yeah, transitioning the Tyrol is absolutely important because that gets us in there. The Habsburgs can't make an alliance with the Ottomans, or else the Pope might excommunicate them, and that would be bad. We don't want to lose victory points for that. So yeah. And the English are already down victory points. For their problem, they're down like 4. So they absolutely need to gain points from somewhere. And that probably means staying at war with France. The Habsburgs might, I don't know, how do they feel about Franche-Comté? Can they cut a deal there? Do we care if we lose it? We do care if we lose it. France probably wants it. No, France doesn't really give a shit about it. So, but it says French. French, they want it. Yeah, so the French haven't been persuaded yet in quite the way the Ottomans have, in terms of, we'll offer you something worthwhile in exchange. Plus, the Habsburgs are winning the war over here. They defeated the French here, and they defeated them back over here. They've got the English on this side of things. Our plan is to go in favor of the Ottomans. Whether or not the Ottomans can launch an attack yet, I don't know. But the Ottomans were planning on a declaration of war on the Lutherans in order to be able to take Vienna. And then that's where this all kind of went south. Up in an anomalous and maybe illegal situation where I have the Lutherans stacked with the Habsburgs, and the Habsburgs don't particularly want to have them stay there. I don't think I can boot them out. Why I say it may be illegal, and maybe that you can never stack opposing players' units, even if they're allied. I'll have to look at that. But if not, they're just kind of stuck there. However, the fact that they're at war with Hungary means that they can slide down. Now, you have the Hungarians moving forward. They paid a cheap price to move forward. Catholics went and actually converted Augsburg back to Catholic. That's marked over on my little German record sheet. And now the Habsburgs are launching an attack on the French down here. Not entirely optimal. If we can get France to give us Dijon, not that we particularly want Dijon, maybe we could get something else in exchange, but I don't know what. We would be willing to take peace and go to war with the Lutherans. Whether the French are willing to join in on that kind of effort. Hey, we have a peace, you get Dijon, and we work together against the Lutherans, is a big question. Or maybe the Habsburgs give up Dijon in exchange for this. But right now, we've got an attack taking place. We've got boats attacking across land, as far as I can tell. You can do that. Let me make sure, because that seems crazy. Yeah, unfortunately, I think here I've got a restriction that works, which is, it's not phrased exactly clearly, but it states, I'm trying to find it, let's look at it. What it states is, gives the combat requirements in terms of zones of control. All enemy units that have friendly units in their zone of control must be attacked. Okay, so I do not have these in these guys' zone of control. But more than that, there's other things, providing a zone of control is exerted by the hostile units. Well, a zone of control is exerted this way, but not that way. I think I'm unable to launch the attack from those units. Which means I'm stuck with only a 2-to-1, which is not what I wanted, but... and I paid extra to move these guys, which I'm definitely not going to do. Let's give them the $2 extra. But let me think about those other guys. I had to pay full amount to move. I couldn't get through beyond here without it. We'll try the 2-to-1 and see if we can get it. I mean, it's a stupid attack, but it seems like easier than trying to undo what came of it. I don't like the 2-to-1 table one bit. 2, it's going to be an exchange. So we both take losses, and there are plenty of Habsburg units that can be rebuilt this turn. However, only 2 of them can be rebuilt in Madrid, and none of them can be rebuilt in Vienna as long as the Lutherans are there. Let me look into that and see if I'm cheating there. I suspect I am. Again, it's very difficult for me to contend with any rules that span the page. It just really is. Even breaking into 2 columns helps me a great deal. I haven't been able to find any specific prohibition against it. Somewhere it says you can't stack your units with other people's units, but the zone of control rules kind of stop you from doing that. What the see if there's a restriction on the movement. There probably is. Yeah, an army may never be moved into a hex occupied by any combat unit of another player. And that's the controlling factor here, and I cheated with that. And I don't know really what to do, except leave things as they are, because the Lutherans certainly shouldn't be charged for it, and let Austria continue to control Vienna as long as they keep an army there. But it definitely puts them in kind of an ugly position that I don't think that it just puts the game into a position where it shouldn't be. The big prohibition that's removed is that you can enter an enemy, another player's unit's zone of control and pass through it with their permission, as well as through their territory with their permission, without a declaration of war and all kind of other stuff. But the whole important point was, and the same with Prague, which they're garrisoning, was the Lutherans garrison this, prevent the Ottomans from taking it. Well, I think the Lutherans take Prague if they move into there, and that's one of the reasons why you can refuse someone entrance to something, but it was absolutely necessary that they actually enter. So I'm going to continue playing with this bent version of the rules. It's going to cause some problems, but I'll try to work through it as best as I can, and I'll try not to allow such a thing to happen again. Anyway, let's continue moving on. French have grabbed Edinburgh and Scotland, and the Lutherans escaping. Not going to conquer Hungary, not going to conquer Tyrol, because there's garrison in Tyrol. They didn't stay in Hungary, but they're trying to wipe out the Ottoman army. It's the only thing in war with them, and they want to teach it a lesson. So they're just surrounding it, paid a huge quantity of cash. They're also doing a diplomatic attack here. No, not a diplomatic attack. Theological attack here at 1-1, which is not a bad table. It's just not a good table. 4, that'll be D, defender, P1, imprisoned for a year, which means Augsburg has been restored, and next turn those will come back to the papacy. So I'll go back here and I put the little L next to Augsburg again. It's once more a Lutheran area. Now for this fight, I have to divide these up. I have 3, 6, 9. I'm going to do 3 3-to-1 attacks. I've paid for them all already. So we'll do the northernmost guys. And 3-to-1's a pretty good table. The defender eliminated. Successful. I guess we might as well move in. There's no real reason not to at this point. The middle guy, or the leftmost. 4, that's a D3. Well, the defender has to retreat. He has nowhere to retreat to, so he too is destroyed. Here we're not so sure we want to advance. And then the final one. And I think no matter what we win, it's just a question of if we get a 5, that's a D2. These guys are destroyed, and we'll have an advance there. If we got an exchange, bad things might kind of happen. Now, Austria is kind of in a, we can't really go to war with the Lutherans. But if we rebuild our reinforcements there, maybe we can try to help the Ottomans out here, because this whole piece was designed to try to swing the game away out of the Lutherans' hands. Now, the thing is, though, if France isn't willing to go along with it, or one side may stab, the other side may not, whatever, like the Austrians, for example, could convince France, let's all go in against the Lutherans. They've got too much of a lead on us. Fine. If you manage to do that, you don't have to keep your side of the bargain. You could not write the war. So one or both sides could agree and not do what they say they're going to do. And these kind of things are always in place. And the Ottomans could, of course, withdraw and give things up. They could give up the Tyrol. Doesn't mean much to them. On the other hand, they kind of want it. So since the Lutherans don't particularly want it, it's probably fair to say in exchange for a peace, they might be willing to allow the Ottomans to keep the Tyrol. Now, if we could split the Tyrol so that the Ottomans could just get into Venice, that would be great. Basically, after some die-rolling, the vague outlines of what was going to happen, it all kind of happened. The Ottomans made peace with the Lutherans. No particular treaty obligations. The Ottomans hold on to Hungary and Tyrol. The Ottomans declared war on the papacy. The French and the Habsburgs came to peace with the understanding that they would both declare war on the Lutherans. Only the French declared war on the Lutherans. They're still at war with England, which is partially problematic, but the idea was, hey, this big alliance against the Lutherans crushed them. Well, the Habsburg pissed out of it, and they're not at war with anyone at this point, which is kind of interesting. They will be able to extricate units in that direction. Most of their units, France did not want to make any kind of alliance with the Habsburgs in particular, because they did not want to open up the possibility of an attack in Italy. They're looking at that as their own kind of possible playground. So the Ottomans are going to have the capability to beat up on the poor old papal forces, which may not be that big a deal because there aren't that many Ottomans left after the Lutherans blew them away. We get to buy more units and throw down the units we have. Ottomans kick things off with a quick invasion of Venice, and their siege is successful, and the honors of war were granted, and they grabbed Venice. Now, that's worth a couple of bucks to them. You might ask, geez, why did you just cycle right from one war to the other to the other? The reason for this is, one, not a lot of room, but two, I already paid for my full economic cost for the last turn. So I want to make a declaration of war. You always want to keep your declarations of war rolling in that sort of fashion, where if I moved my armies fully, I might as well get a free declaration of war in with it. You don't see that everywhere, but certainly here there is that. And this is turning out to be kind of a neat little Ameritrashy game. Not as polished as the modern ones, and not as just not as clean cut. There's a lot more little piddly rules and stuff going on in that than most. But that's kind of more my feeling about it. And the problem is, if you approach it thinking of it in wargaming terms, as opposed to like comparing it to, say, Britannia or something like that, I think, or barbarians, not barbarians. What the hell was it? Crap. The Eon one. I can't. Borderlands. If you think about it less in terms of that kind of game and more like a war game, you're gonna be thinking the wrong kind of game for it. And I think that's the problem, is that SPI, I expected something else from it. SPI did their, kind of silly little games, and this is one of them. All right. So for the Ottomans, the papacy pulls back. They got a standoff over here in Switzerland, still fighting over control there. I should probably throw some papal looking markers. There's a very limited number of papal markers in general. So I'll use some of these here. Just to show the extent of their territory in Italy. They basically have everything in Italy and Switzerland except for a couple of things that are occupied. That probably won't last. And it's kind of neat because it sucks up points that other people have, but there's not much they can do against the Ottomans. Just like if the Lutherans really focused on Italy, which they have very little interest in other than the idea of collecting income, and income's kind of an iffy thing. Income only really matters if you're at peace while you're collecting it, right? And we don't expect anybody to be at peace for the rest of the game. So there's some reason to try to grab some stuff early in the game, spend some money on that, and then if you can increase your income enough, it might make sense to have some early action in the game. But not too early, because you still need to have 3 or 4 turns worth of income built up to be able to engage in things. And you have to kind of double your income or something for it to make sense, I guess. Anyway, after that, Habsburgs, a little bit of repositioning, mainly to give themselves rooms to put additional forces on the board in Vienna that they bought. Antwerp is completely open. I'm not sure why no one's declaring war on them there, but whatever. The French took Calais, and they're kind of saying to the Habsburgs, look, if you declare war this turn on the Lutherans, fine. The Habsburgs kind of, we weren't quite ready, you know what we meant. And the French are just having this feeling that is quite often the case in the diplomatic games of, yeah, you're waiting to stab me. And that doesn't sound wise, but there is an open stab here at Bordeaux. The problem is the English are still at war with the French, and the English have gone and grabbed Rouen. However, they lost Calais. I think there's a good chance the French will come to peace with the Lutherans just because of the English problem. And remember, while the Lutherans have a lot of spaces that give points, most of them aren't big points. 3s are their biggest. They're doing this in quantity. The big countries, if they can get a total victory on someone that they care about, so like if England defeated France, there's enough points there to make up for what the Lutherans have. The Lutherans seem potent, but it's mainly the fact that they have this big jump on what they got to convert, and nobody's taken an axe to them. And if somebody wins a big military victory against someone else, then it's all over in that direction. So that could be Spain winning, or Habsburgs winning against France, or England and France doing so, or the Ottomans coming in on one side or another. I think a lot of that plays into the Lutherans' hands, though, which is to say, there's likely to be a stalemate when 2 big countries face each other. Sure, Ottomans got Hungary, but it didn't look like they were going to get much more. If it hadn't been for the Lutheran intervention, though, in Austria, and the kind of illegal Lutheran intervention, Vienna would have fallen. Okay, and that I'm not sure how anything could be saved from that. So now we're on the Lutherans. They have a big army, and I think they're only at war with the French. But their army's not facing the French. So we're going to probably pay 1/3 of our income and try to reposition in such a way that, I don't know, we can oppose France, I guess. Anti-Lutheran alliance pretty much collapsed. What we ended up having France saying, you know, my interests aren't against the Lutherans particularly, and England's at war with me. I'm willing to make peace. And the Lutherans are like, yeah, man, no problem. We're pretty happy. The Ottomans and the papacy, no real conflict here. The papacy is not interested in Venice. They don't like how strong the Ottomans are becoming, but their focus is got to be against the Lutherans. Their points come from the counter-conversions, and they're trying to get people to move against the Lutherans. Now, the only way to bribe people to do that is probably to give away Italian states to the Habsburgs or the French, but the French are busy and weren't really amiable to a bribe. And the Habsburgs are like, you know, the Ottomans are doing pretty well, and they're kind of weak right now. The Lutherans don't look weak at all. Let's spend the extra money, take Hungary and Venice, and, you know, take what we can back from the Ottomans. So that cost them a boatload of money. And now we're pushing forward. One of the weakest factors, one of the countries with the weakest aspects in the game is probably France, because of Paris. Paris can only have 2 armies in it at any time. It is the only place that I can build French armies. Even if Scotland were allowed, that would allow 4 armies instead. But the weakness of Paris compared to every other capital in the game, I don't know, maybe Rome's not much better. No, Rome can hold 6. Most of the other countries can hold like 6 armies in their capital. That's the only place you can build armies. It's kind of an unfair disadvantage to France. It means, it's why their armies were not appearing before. It means that they can only really flow in 2 armies per turn in terms of builds. So they can't recuperate their losses the way other countries can. It may be made up by the fact that they have a fair amount of armies, but if somebody's in France, they can't even build those 2 armies. Maybe they can slip 1 army away and build 1 in Paris, but it does seem to be a significant weakness to France, and I'm not sure it's fair or warranted, just in comparison. However, it does make Paris weak, which historically Paris was not very easy, was not very hard to take in a lot of ways. All right, I guess we push on into the next turn. Halfway up through this, 1550 turn, the Ottomans created a little defensive line here. It was a tough one to deal with, and you can see the Habsburgs actually attacked 2 spaces on it. One of them, they succeeded over here in advance. They took both Hungary and Tyrol. The other one, though, was over here, and they lost. And they lost more units than the Ottomans did. In between that, the papacy got another standoff here and lost some units over in Bohemia. The Jesuits were lost. I don't have enough papal armies to try to push against the Lutherans in a real war. And on the other hand, the Lutherans don't really want to be a war with anyone. We're doing okay right now. We just want to make sure that nobody gets too big an upper hand. So like, we're really happy to see the Ottomans getting pushed back here. That's how the Lutherans win, I think, is that everyone else maintains a vague sense of stasis. Of an ugly situation, which some of you may have caught. The French were able to seize London, which only had 1 ship in it. And, geez, I forgot to move the English. I jumped right to the Lutherans, who went down to Bologna, and although they're not able to actually convert the papal states, this was pointed out to me, it's in the errata, they're able to go down there and debate. And they did that. And got the Pope to lock away some Jesuits for some reason. But I do have to do the English, and I'm not sure what is up with them. Back in time, the English are besieging London now. That's a 2-to-1 siege table, which is not optimal by any means, but we need to get it back. It's an attack of retreats too. She's going to cause us nothing but trouble. 1, 2. There's no honors of war here. I don't think I can land back on the boat. Oh, there's a boat here. I'm in trouble. There's no boat there. So this guy dies. And it's a bad situation because I will not be able to rebuild infantry units while London's conquered. And that's going to possibly be the end of England. Yes, they can keep rebuilding navies, and navies are powerful and can fight. But, you know, maybe not the end of England, but it's an 8-point money swing, which means the English aren't going to be making much income for whatever that matters. I've got $175. I got plenty of cash on hand because of the turns I didn't do anything. But I guess the biggest thing is France gets 4 points, but England, as long as that persists, is down 15, which that's not good. So that pretty much knocks them out of the victory for the game. The 4 points, you know, losing Scotland, losing Bray, these are big deals too, but I've taken Calais, I've taken London, and I have a flow of troops coming in. Now, France has that inherent weakness, which is a problem. Anyway, we'll collect some more money and finish up the exciting part. I mean, this really is really, the game has turned from, why am I even playing this, to kind of an exciting Ameritrashy type experience, you know? The shakeups in the diplomatic situation. The Lutherans are really the ones who hold the balance here and could do something impressive. And they don't want to make their decision yet. They don't want to get caught on one side or another in one of these wars quite yet until they come towards the end of the game. They're going to try to balance the power in Europe in terms of the victory points. That's their goal. Ottomans, hey, we won a big battle. We don't want peace. Austria would have said, you know what, let's have peace. I want to go after the Lutherans still, you know, and fine, you can keep Venice. That's a bonus for you, but I got my Hungary back. Now let's try to trash the Lutherans. And the Ottomans are just like, no, you lost a big battle, man. Screw you. I got a shot here. I don't know if that's a reasonable decision. They're still outnumbered on the front there, but whatever. And that probably hands it to the Lutherans, to tell you the truth. Over England, France, well, France isn't going to give up London, and England can't afford a peace where they don't have London. So, again, you know, that's worth good points for the French. They don't want to give it up. They think they've got the advantage right now. And if they can get a big enough swing, maybe they pass the Lutherans up. This is the real iffy one. Neither side particularly is in a position where they should be happy with what they have. Let me give it a die roll. Nope. All right, and that'll put us into the next turn. Now, if anybody comes significantly over the line, for example, if the French are winning against the English, you may well see a Lutheran attack into France. You'll almost certainly... Okay, here's what's impossible. So both France and England, I believe, get a penalty if there are any Lutheran missionaries in their territory. The English lose 2. No, France doesn't, I guess. Anybody else other than England? I don't think so. I think England's the only one who has that issue. That's pretty hard to stop. They just have to walk somebody across because they've got a movement rate of 6 as long as they walk on water. They're very holy, but the waves kind of are difficult to walk on, and yeah, small boats. But it does reduce their movement. The missionaries normally have a movement of 8. So they could do some damage to the English if the English are coming out ahead. And they could throw their army in against, say, France, if France is coming out ahead. Or against the Habsburgs if they're coming out ahead. There's not a hell of a lot I can do against the Ottomans except, well, I'm still allied with the Habsburgs. I could join in a fight with them. All right, let's end this one up. But we're definitely having more fun, right?